Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming today and for being so active in participating. I really learned a lot from listening, and I appreciate all the presenters, and want to give special thanks to the report authors who really have done this amazing work with very little support from me. So thank you for that. I also want to thank the SJM team who planned the event, Veronica in particular, and Kate, and Valerie at Conference Direct. So I'm here to wrap things up. I'm not going to talk at you for half an hour. I really, as the title of this, What's Next, suggests, I want to engage you guys on a few issues. We are hoping to reestablish a sentencing commission in Michigan. I say reestablish because there was one first when the guidelines were created. It was defunded and disbanded shortly thereafter. And then there was a sort of a successor created for a few years from 2014 to 2019 called the Criminal Justice Policy Commission that unfortunately had a legislative sunset that was not renewed for reasons that I do not think were related to its utility. So I think a few things. Obviously the report raises a host of issues, and one might ask, why start with the sentencing commission? We could pursue habitual offender sentencing reform. There's lots to do on OVs, PRVs, and the like. So I think from our perspective, it comes down to kind of some of the forest and trees issues that Judge Bazzi mentioned. First, I think any individual issue around sentencing reform is going to be a heavy lift in this legislature, and that's the function of the political environment, a lack of expertise on these issues within the legislature. We have a very, very strictly term-limited legislature. A third of the House turns over every 2 years, and that makes it very hard to do projects that are longer than 2 years within the legislature. So having a permanent body with institutional knowledge, expertise, data would be really helpful in taking a holistic look at guidelines as well as many of these individual issues. We also think that having a commission is really an urgent need within the system. I mean, these are systems we spend billions of dollars on annually. And as the report documents, a substantial part of these costs are a product of the policy choices that were made in the sentencing guidelines. And this is a system where people are getting sentenced every day. Hundreds and thousands of people. There's a 250,000 criminal cases come through our courts every year. And, continuing to sentence people every day without any sort of meaningful oversight, I think is a problem that we should all be concerned about. In addition, more study is needed on a number of the questions raised. Folks were quick to point out that some of the data is a little old, which we acknowledge. But in addition, we think having a commission in place will make discussion of other reforms better informed and more data-driven. And I think, finally, commission would provide a forum to do research and debate policy change, an expert body with broad representation to make recommendations. So that's why I think, we are leading with the commission as opposed to some of these other issues. Reasonable people can disagree about what to prioritize, but from my perspective, I think the commission is actually really important. I also think, just politically, it's the kind of thing that could pass with relative ease in the legislature compared to some of the other things that we're talking about. I don't think there's much disagreement in the room that we should have a commission. Is there anyone that thinks we shouldn't have a commission? Okay, so I'm going to skip over that part. Then I think, the most salient sort of set of next questions are around composition. Who should be part of this commission, mandate and functions, what should the commission be asked to do. And I don't know if you guys have discovered this, but I have included some legislation in your packet. And this is actually the enabling legislation for the Criminal Justice Policy Commission. And it's less than 4 pages. I think it's 3 pages total. And I think it's a really nice, just short look at the possibilities of what a commission can look like. And this one sort of, lays out what constituencies get to make recommendations for appointment. It sort of has the core functions. I understand the mandate for this is just a little bit broader than the original Sentencing Commission. This has more sort of broad research powers. But, from my perspective, this is a pretty good model. And I think Professor Mitchell, I don't know if you've had the chance to look at it, but this, I think, is in line with what you would recommend as well, in terms of representative body that includes, most of the relevant stakeholders, has a relatively broad mandate around, system issues, not just the sentencing guidelines. So I think I'm interested in thoughts from the group on what is most important to have in a commission. And that's a broad, open-ended question, but, just to give you sort of why I'm asking is we're looking to convene a work group and start to put together proposed legislation related to this. So the more input that we get from you all, the more I can sort of work with draft legislation, because I think, if we can get consensus among stakeholders behind a particular proposal, I don't see there being a ton of resistance in the legislature, but that can get muddied up very quickly if not. So any thoughts in terms of Sophie?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier when we saw the commission makeup from other states, and it seemed really top-heavy with judges and lawyers and law enforcement, which I think is important. But I also think there needs to be a lot of community members and or directly impacted community members, as well as formerly incarcerated people that actually have life experience.
Thank you. Yes, Jonathan.
I agree with that. I also think I see a lot of these work groups that sort of the prosecutor person, the defense person, and people sort of sliding their role. And sometimes there's good communication and cooperation, but not always. It might be good to have a commission that becomes more academic focused. So a lot of public policy people, research scientists, criminologists, and then that sort of overcomes some of those short-term goals and positions.
Yeah, when these things are put together in Lansing, there is sort of a usual suspects sort of list of folks that are put on, and sometimes it can lead to gridlock or unproductive conversations. So I see Professor Burgess Proctor and Grady talking. One question I had was about the number of staff, because Grady, were you the only staff member? Yeah, that seems hard. So I think one reaction I had to the policy commission was that probably it could use a bit more staffing in general, because when you're talking about something as vast as the criminal justice system, being able to just fulfill the basic functions of a commission is going to take more than one person. Barb.
commission, of course, is that it allows the issues to be passed out in the commission meetings and not in legislative hearings about people that have allowed that to be. So you can have, you don't want overrepresentation of anything in the inside of it. But you do want stakeholders to have enough buy-in so that when it comes time to get it to the legislature.
Yeah.
The commission has the last word, but as long as that's set up so the commission is making recommendations to the legislature, it's important to have enough representatives from each of the stakeholders so that the commission process can be effective.
Right.
But in terms of where the balance is, we didn't.
Yeah. Judge Bazzi.
All right. That you're developing your commission, making sure that, thank you. If you're going to get people from the same groups, that they're representing maybe a different segment of that particular group so that the full kind of voice can be heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, especially with roles like prosecutors, where you do have a broad range of views. DJ Hilson, the Muskegon County prosecutor, was the representative on the Criminal Justice Policy Commission, and he's known as somebody who's relatively good at kind of representing in a balanced way the group's views. It was 4 legislators on the Policy Commission, right, Barb? 2 from each chamber, 1 from each party. Yeah, and okay, yeah, I mean, and that was pretty strong representation, but even with that level of representation, it was hard to get the legislature's attention. I think Senator Lucido and Santana maybe had a little bit more success just with the Senate being a smaller body and those guys being stronger personalities. But, it's with a project like looking at the sentencing guidelines or looking at habitual sentencing, that's going to require a lot of legislative buy-in, and having really strong representatives on a commission, I think, is very important to that being taken seriously in the legislature. Judge Kenny.
Yes, thank you. And with regards to the discussion this morning, which focused on the capital offenses and guidelines, I know I'm sort of speaking from a parochial standpoint, perhaps, in that I'm the chief judge at the Third Circuit Court. But according to the scale reports, 40% of the capital cases that get resolved in the state of Michigan come out of Wayne County. And that also, certainly the discussion that we've had today about the issue of racial disparity with regards to the way that the guidelines are imposed. I think there's a compelling argument to be made that the Third Circuit Court, Wayne County, and the community as well, needs to be represented on the commission.
That 40% number that's right. I mean, I think it's been that way for a while too. Yeah. Other comments? So I think that's probably enough. It's been a long day. I know everyone's quite busy. So I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank the report authors once again for their hard work on all this. And please let me know if you'd like to be involved in a work group towards legislation. We still don't know what that will look like, but it's something we're going to start working on here. And thoughts on the other recommendations. I know there is likely to be legislation on some of these other issues. Feel free to email me I'm John, John, at safeandjustmi.org. And, you know, we're looking forward to moving this forward with all of you. So thanks a lot.